Welcome to the Laye&Lucy TV. I am Lucy.
I'm Laye.
And today we have our esteemed guest. He will introduce himself a bit. I'll give him the chance to introduce himself. But before that, let me introduce our topic, which our esteemed guest will be helping us unpack. So we are turning our attention today to the Sahel region of Africa. It's a vast belt stretching across very many countries. I'm sure most of you know the Sahara. So most of these countries we'll be speaking about are in that general region. So we have countries like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Chad, Senegal, where millions of people depend on agriculture for survival. Actually, most of Africa depends on agriculture for survival. So we all know, or we are all aware, food is essential for all human. That food production, which sits at the very center of African economy, is a question which we need to really debunk, especially as it relates to agriculture, where we find at least 60% of the workforce in Africa generally supporting the agricultural practices. So where we have failed harvests, food prices rise fast, and then it follows unrest, political unrest or civil unrest. And this boils down to our farming practices in Africa. So specifically today we'll be talking about Sahel, which has the toughest, which is the toughest area to do farming, because we know of the Sahara, and there is little to no rainfall, and we need to know what can be done or what is being done in this region to encourage agriculture and for the people to be able to sustain themselves, because we've said food is essential for all human. Now, we have our esteemed guest, Ernest. Ernest, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having
Ernest
me.
has done some research on what we are speaking about. So, Ernest, could you introduce yourself to our viewers?
My name is Ernest Amponsa, originally from Ghana, but I've been living in Norway since 2005, sorry. I actually finished my studies 2012. And I have a bachelor degree in development studies, international development studies, from the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. And I also have a master's in international development studies, also from Norwegian University of Life Sciences. And also I did another master's at the University of Oslo within health economics. And my research area in development studies has always been food production and agriculture in the dryland areas, actually. I call it dryland areas because they are mostly dry. And I was actually in Mali, stayed there for some time to do my research. The result of the research was published, and then the university was able to raise 45 million Norwegian kroner to continue with the project. The project I researched on was actually a technology adoption in Mali, and also it was sponsored by NORAD, which is a Norwegian agency for development. And then I got sponsorship in terms of logistics from the dryland coordination groups. And the dryland coordination group also has a center in Mali. So they received me and they supported me with logistics. The result of the thesis was published, and also I wrote article out of the thesis, and it was also published. So those are the areas I think we can also look at.
Ernest, farming. Why not other thing? Why farming, and especially why?
That's a very interesting and good question. I grew up in a farming area in Ghana. When I was growing up, it was very, very difficult to get food. You could have money, but you cannot get food to even buy those days in Ghana. And then at a certain point, there was this bushfiring that spread across Ghana. And some of us have to live under extreme food conditions. Then when I moved to Norway, I started doing my research. I started following the Malthusian theory that food and population growth were actually moving hand in hand, So I started getting interested. Yes. And in my bachelor studies, I saw that the same trend was happening in India, that some people were committing suicide because of lack of food. So I started getting interested in connecting it with my background in Ghana. So I saw that there was some relationship. So I started getting interested more into food production in connection to agriculture and how these things, some people have it in abundance and the other people don't have it at all. And why it leads to this economic hardship. And, food is health, food is life. So I started getting interested in finding the relationship between food and human life.
So could you tell us briefly or expound for us about your research, the one which was funded by NORAD, and how it is linked to the agriculture in Mali?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I think the research was a collaboration program between NORAD and then the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. In us, provided the technical support. The idea of the whole project was to help these dryland areas to increase productivity through technology adoption. So my area was to research factors that influence adoption of these technologies and whether the technology had an impact on the livelihood of these farmers who adopted it. And what was the technology about? It was about using a certain quantity of fertilizer under each plant, each seed that you place on the soil. If you use certain quantity of fertilizer, instead of just wasting the fertilizer, as soon as there was a little amount of rain, the crop will automatically grow. So you don't need, if you apply the right amount of fertilizer, then you don't need so much rain for the crops to grow. And also there's a likelihood that all the crops you planted will grow, as compared to not using the technology right, that you may have to replant. And also, even when you replant, most of them will not grow. So it was the same technology the farmers were using, but applying the right quantity of fertilizer and then the right distance from the seed. Yeah. So that was what the crop technology was about. And it was also clear that when those who did it right and followed the technology increase productivity. And like I said, food is life. When you get enough you depend on agriculture. When your crops grow and things improve, then your livelihood also gets better. So we were trying to see the impact on these farmers, actually. There was also livestock technologies that was not so, it was not very, very much extreme as compared to the crop technologies. Yeah. And if you know, the Sahel region is a very, very harsh environment. I traveled several kilometers in Mali. You see that the place is actually stony. Some areas you drive like 10 kilometers, you see only stones spread on the land. So they build some of their houses, they collect the stones and use just the stone to build house. Still, you see a lot of stones still spread on the place. In addition to the soil not being good for agriculture, there's also the problem of the rain, not falling. So you have several factors that influence or that makes agriculture very, very difficult. At the same time, that is the area they get their livelihood from. So then they need a savior, something has to happen to help them increase, to get a better life and a livelihood.
Yeah, you saying that some people was adopting it. How was it? Who was adopting it and who was not adopting it? And was it difficult to do it?
When you have technology, actually, there's always skepticism, and also there are people who will embrace it. It's like technology AI technology, not everybody will embrace it. So some people surely adapted and some people didn't adapt. But those who adapted, they testify that the technology increased productivity and they were able to change their life. Some confess that they were able to take a third wife because the technology brought in money and they were very happy. But then when they were adapting the technology, they were getting logistics support through the project. So when the project was over, then they now have to continue sponsoring the project themselves. And that is where the issue came from too, that some people couldn't continue because they didn't have enough money to continue with the project. But skepticism is everywhere, especially when a new thing come up. Some people embrace it, some people doubt it. But then when they see it is going well for other people, then they jump on. Yeah.
So from what was initiated and what you have said that after the project, some people were not able to continue with what you had taught them, like the new technology on how to do farming for better yields. My curiosity in this would be, was there any inculcation of the olden? Because I believe sometimes people have a way of doing things, or what we call it, the indigenous knowledge, because they have lived in the Sahel for eons, for years and years. And I'm sure there is a way they are able to time that 3 months period of rain, however little it comes, to be able to produce it. Is there a way you mixed the new technology with the old, or was it just new so that it made the people who are not able to have enough money to continue after you finish the project?
Thank you for the question. Like you said, they live on agriculture. But if you want to increase productivity, then something has to happen. There is something they call a madman's rule, like doing the same thing and expecting a new result. So if you want a new result, then you have to change your methods, But if you use the old method, you get the same result. No matter what, that is their livelihood. They live on those traditional methods, as you said. And traditional methods works. But the question is, it doesn't, if you are talking about commercial farming, you cannot depend on only traditional methods. You need technology, you need a lot of assistance, you need to change your traditional way of. So traditional way of agriculture is actually a peasantry form of agriculture, where you only able to feed yourself and feed your little family. But if you want to get more, to the extent that you're able to bring in a third wife and also to be able to do other things, then you have to find other avenues, other ways that you can increase productivity so that you'll be able to feed yourself and also make money out of your productivity. So they were still there. That's what they've been doing. But they found out that the technology was much better, because it makes things to improve. Their crops production went very high, to a very high extent that they can confess to it. And they were very appreciative for the technology, actually. And actually, like I said, the government of Norway decided to continue with the project. So extra money came in. That I remember, if you read the attestation I got after my thesis, I got the attestation to continue with my PhD with the same professor. And he made mention that they got money, 45 million, to continue with the project. But as soon as I came, then there was this whatever.
Tuareg war.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was lucky that I actually came before it started. So as at now, I don't know how the technology went, but I don't think anybody could access those areas. Yeah.
So my question also, it just go back to adaptation. According to your research, out of 120 farmers in your study, 68% adopted fertilizer, and about 51 adopted seed priming, but a significant group did not. What did you find were the key factors that separate those who adopted it from those who did not, like household size, market accessibility, and large farm size, for example?
That is very, very good. Like you talk, especially the issue that was Mali faces, like I said before, is accessibility and also finance. So these are two things that you have to. Or accessibility is in such a way that most of the things are centralized in the capital, which is some of these farmers live 600 kilometers from Bamako. And even those who live, like, for example, where we are now here, imagine we are here, we have a little big market here. To be able to access it to the village, sometimes it's a big problem because some villages are not accessible. The only way to access those villages is through a motorbike or a bicycle. And when it rains, there was no way to get to those villages. So when they come to the city, they are able to take maybe one bag of fertilizer and carry it. And then you have to wait until you come in the next time. And you need certain quantity of fertilizer to be able to implement the technology. So accessibility was a very big issue. And if you have been living on as a peasant farmer, and all of a sudden you have to use some of your income to start buying logistics, seed, fertilizer, it becomes quite expensive for them. Though you know that it's like certain technology, you know that it works. But because you don't have the means to do it, you are not able to access it, then you actually start doubting it, or you adopt it on a very low scale. So some people were adopting it at a very low scale, but those who had the means were actually, beside what they got from the project, they added their own funds and they were able to increase productivity to a very large scale, actually.
So looking at what you implemented or the knowledge you impacted to the local farmers in Mali, where is the disconnect, especially in terms of policy? Because in our African government or in the development programs, because it had to take someone like you with curiosity to see that there is some parallels between how you grew up and what was happening, as you said, in India, where there's drought and people are committing suicide because there's lack of food or they don't have food. So what do you think is the issue when it comes to the policy and the development of these policies and the programs which are developed mostly in Africa and probably in the Sahel region? Why they don't work in relation to agriculture?
We have the Millennium Development Goals, and then the idea is to eradicate extreme poverty out of the world, which is a very ambitious goal. And then how do they do it? We have the top-down process, and some people are suggesting that we should use the bottom-up process, And we all know that if we use the top-up process, and surely some of the funds that are supposed to drain down will surely disappear in the middle, before it reaches down. And that has been the development argument that people have been debating. That instead of going through the top-down process, they should rather start from the bottom up. And that is what I like about this technology we were doing. We went to the bottom down, so the farmer themselves could testify it. But the millennium, most of these policies and the sponsorship, the money, the funds that are coming in goes through the top down. And like I said, most of it disappeared. So we are not able to meet the Millennium Development Goal up to now. And at the same time, even if you use the bottom-up approach also, there are other consequences, that you may face. Like I said, some people may use the money to get new wives. So it's a complex issue. So I cannot say that the top down is better or bad and the bottom up is better. It's the whole African way of thinking got to be changed for some reasons. Or we need to put systems in place so that when these funds are coming, we know exactly how to manage it. If not, it's not about the government, it's not about the development agency, it's about the way we are structured, the systems that we have. It needs to change. Whether we are doing the top down or we are using the bottom up, there should be some kind of systems to do check and balances, so that the things can flow right. Not we will be doing the same mistake over and over. And you cannot blame there's nobody to blame. You cannot blame the government. You can also blame the development agencies. But somewhere there we know that something is actually supposed to be done. And that's where we need to focus on.
As you were saying, like the transport system is very difficult. Like traveling from Bamako to these rural area. And then if you have these fertile seed, you want to carry it. It's so difficult. What can government do to make it better for them?
Hello? You already said it right, that we need more roads, we need accessibilities, and the government alone cannot do everything, So again, it boils down to the fact that when the people themselves are aware to do, they'll be able to develop themselves. So we need to start from somewhere, for example, start from somewhere in between there, We shouldn't wait for the government to come and do, because the government also may not have all the means. But empowering the people themselves to be able to do things to help themselves. In Norway, they do it. How do the agriculture system works? They buy one machine, and then all the farmers come together and use it. So they have a centralized system where you can get this equipment, use it. When you finish, the next person borrow it and use it, Such things could start working for
No, I did not get that. You have to unpack
Yeah.
that. How that happened.
No, it's like they have associations, Like the farmers in my area here have an association where they all come together because it's very expensive for one farmer to buy a whole agriculture, let's say a tractor or something, machines they use. It's very expensive. So they come together as an association, and then they buy this together and then they share the usage. So you can use it this week, the other person uses it the next week, or you use it this day, the other person uses it the next day. The same thing could happen in Africa, where they come together through a union, put their funds together, and then help one another. This co-community way of thinking could be a way to get people out of this poverty instead of just focusing on waiting for the government to come and do everything.
Yeah, that was a very good. That was very good idea that an African farmer could do, working together, put money together to buy equipment. So you use it, and when you finish, I don't want to use it. So yeah, I still live in Norway, but I did not know that how it how it worked.
That's how it works, So if you bring small, I bring a little, we put together, all of a sudden it becomes a pot that all can tap into, And in the end, it comes back to us, Instead of waiting. Then if the government see that we are organized and we are helping ourselves, the little the government add makes it even better for us, But we have to help ourselves instead of waiting for the government to do everything.
Your research touched a bit on the gender aspect, and there's one gender which took up the technology more than the other. Could you tell us more about that, and what were the findings of or the reasons why that one gender was taking up more of the technology than the other?
It also has to do with the structure of families in Africa or in Mali. The man is the head of the family. When you go to any home, I don't think the women don't really speak. They look up to their husbands to speak, At least that's how I experienced. And we never had a chance to. Sometimes some villages when we are coming in, the woman will get up with the child and go away. So automatically it is the man that we meet. But there were some NGOs that were headed by women, and they were also doing this women empowerment project, so they were more into this animal and livestock technologies that were helping. The women were coming together, raising chicken, fowls, and selling and making some money. They were also doing some crop technologies. They were a women group. It's a place that is highly divided. I didn't really have the chance to speak more to women. Automatically, it's like you're supposed to talk to so the male gender is more dominant in some ways than the females. But when we came to the female aspect where they had their own small project, I was able to talk to the women also. But it's because of the way the household is structured, that the man is the head of the family. And actually, they had some places that the men normally meet, and they were the only ones that you normally see outside, while the women were more like in the house taking care of the family. So I mostly start with the men and very little with the women, actually. Yeah. But when you come to Bamako, it's more Libra. Yeah, the capital is more Libra. You meet women, they talk to you in the car. Yeah.
So based on that, I want to ask you a question which I think you will probably have to infer a lot or guesstimate probably. There's this saying we have: educate a woman and you educate the entire community. So based on what you've just said, that you found, the research found that it is more men, based on the structure of our society, it is more men who took up the technology than women. And the chance you had to evaluate the systems of women was just based on what they were doing for themselves and not together with the men. So do you think that saying is applicable, or does it depend on the social society? Because from where I think, my perspective is that it is true that if you educate a woman, you educate the entire community, because the woman is the first person who teaches even the children, or who takes care of everyone. That knowledge is transmitted to them, or to the children, or to everyone near that woman. So is that saying applicable there, or what do you think?
That's a very interesting question. I don't think the women are excluded, but they are more like helpers, and they also have a good role to play. They go to the farm with the man, but in every society there should be structure. So the structure is that here we have the head of the home, who is also the head of the farming, and we have the helpers. So maybe the woman come next, and then the children. So it's just a structural issue. It has nothing to do with being oppressed, or I don't feel like that, because the women I met were looking very happy and relaxed. I didn't see, they gave me some even foul, very happy to see me. But I think when you have structure, it's important. In every society there should be a structure, and I think that's why they practice. I didn't see anybody hitting a woman. They were highly respected, but they were like a hierarchy, that you know where you are. And at the same time, I think it also has a religious connotations, that the women and men are a little bit, this is practiced right here in Saudi Arabia. I was in Dubai. At the airport, when I came out of the plane, I was going straight into the taxi that was waiting there. I didn't know that a man cannot enter into a woman's taxi in Dubai. So they started shouting, hey, 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 hey. I was like, they said, haram, haram. Then when I came out, when I turned back, they told me, no, this is for women and this are for men. So it has to do with maybe religious practices.
No, I think it's much more about cultural,
Yeah, culture also can be.
Because Mali is much more Mande culture, and often the men are the leader of the family. That do not mean that women, they don't have nothing to say, because sometimes they say behind any successful men, there are ladies behind. Yeah, and then as you coming in as a guest, so lady, they may be shy to talk to you, they don't know you, so they gave a chance for the husband to talk to you, to interact with you. But after that, they will get a report what you people talk about, and then they will give their input, their advice. Okay, next time you have to do this and that. And often the man is not taking all the decision without
without the women.
Yeah.
Like I saw a good harmony between the families. Just that you see the classification, like you say, cultural, it could be religious, it could be a kind of structural way of living, which is in some ways good. I didn't see anybody being mistreated because of gender. No. Women were highly respected, yeah.
But what was it difference between family that have large member and the family with not very large family member like that in agriculture, in terms of what they are earning and about workforce? For example, if you have 10 children or 20 children compared to those who have 5 or 6?
That's an interesting question. I noticed that those with more children were having larger farms than those with who were not just a few. But in general, they normally had large families. Most of them had 2 wives, 3 wives, or 4 wives, and the wives produced children. I quite remember when you ask a Malian in Mopti, Kulikro, to call the number of children they have, they start 1, 2, when they reach maybe 15, then they forget. Then they restart again. So sometimes we use several hours trying to count the number of children the family had. And some of them too had moved out of the place, but they were also part of the family. So they have to remember them. And it takes a long time before they could tell the number of children they have, So having a large family is important because they depend on man effort to work, to produce then some of them were using cattle, and all those things needs to be operated by manpower. So having large family means having more hands to feed, and then more workforce also, actually, as compared to people who were. But in general, they were mostly large families in Mali. You hardly see a family where there are only just 2 people, It's generally a large family.
Related to your research and the aspect that I have read somewhere that overuse of fertilizer may make or reduce the quality of the soil. And then now we are speaking about Sahel, where we know it's mainly the desert, and the soil there quality is wanting because, as you've said, from your experience, it's a lot of rock and sand. And now we are bringing some fertilizer. Do you think that is, in the long run, is sustainable?
That's an interesting question. When I came, I asked my teacher the same question you asked. And he told me that compared to the amount of fertilizer Africans use through the project,
Yeah,
it is actually just a little tiny bit of what fertilizer they use in Norway. He said you can't even compare the quantity of fertilizer used here in Norway as compared to the ones they are using. They normally don't even use fertilizer. It's a very little quantity that has not much effect as compared to the quantity of fertilizer we use here on our crops in Europe. And I don't think the quantity is very, very small. And that's why the technology was very important. As compared to before, when they were using the local knowledge, they spread the fertilizer in a large quantity. Those actually have a negative effect, because when it rains, it just brings the fertilizer and then it doesn't do the work. But here you dig the soil and bury the fertilizer, a little quantity buried at a certain distance. So if you use the technology right, you save fertilizer, you use very less fertilizer, and at the same time, the fertilizer doesn't drain out of the soil, it sink. So for some reason, the technology was taking care of this, the question you are asking for, like destroying the land. But in terms of quantity, they were not using anything at all as compared to Norway.
Can eco-farming be applicable to other parts of Africa, for example?
That is something that I thought, because it's not only dryland countries that suffer with rain. And also the thought about the technology is that just a little amount of rain will make the crops to germinate. Almost all the crops germinate because you have a correct distance. So I was thinking, why not Ghana? If you go to Ghana, for example, you have the south and you have the north. The north of Ghana is as dry as in Mali or Burkina Faso or Niger. So this technology could be applied to anywhere in every country. And even in places where we have enough rain, using the right amount of fertilizer could help increase productivity. So I feel like it's a technology that every country could, because you apply a certain amount of fertilizer to a certain distance, and once the rain touch the ground, it just helps the fertilizer, the crop to germinate. And Africa, it doesn't rain all the time. It rains everywhere as a season, If you have a technology that can help your crops to germinate with a little rain, why not adopt it? I think it's something that can be applicable to every place in the world, Africa.
Yeah, that is true. We need such technology because as we speak, Africa in its entirety, it's not able to feed its people. We rely so much on imports from other continents or other countries outside Africa, yet we have a lot of arable land. If this technology helps, then it should be replicated in everywhere. Yes.
And also we can develop on the technology in such a way that instead of manually using human power to put the fertilizer, making the hole and putting the fertilizer on each seed, we could develop machines, that can just place the fertilizer and place the seed at the same time. In that case, we mechanize the system. This is just my own thought. We could mechanize the system and then we could do it on a very large scale.
Yes, because yes, that's very true. Because actually, most of the food grown by people is subsistent, as you said. It's not grown for export or
for
in a very
commercial.
large scale. So if for those countries or those places where they have large tracts of land and they're able to mechanize that for a larger scale of production, it will be very beneficial. We can be importing from each other instead of from other continents.
Exactly. Like I'm here. When I was in Mali, I used to drink moringa free of charge. Every morning they give it to me. And I bought moringa here. It costs about 300 kroner.
Wow.
It's just the powder, you know. So we can mechanize our agriculture. Mali could be producing moringa, and Ghana could be producing corn or cocoa. I mean, there are so many things we can export in between our countries through mechanization, you know, instead of depending only on the small peasantry, small farming system. If we mechanize, then it will bring in more income and more. Africa will be sustainable for some reasons.
My question now is just like, what advice can we give to people who want to start farming, you know? And how can we mechanize all? Because I think we have to have money to to mechanize, you know, to make it industry. How can
That's where the problem is, you know. Technology is something that you cannot tell me that when this Musk started Tesla, he had the money of the whole world. The technology rather brought in money. So the idea is to start the technology, start making prototypes, and it will generate the money, actually. So the technology brings in the income. You need certain amount to start it. And that's why I was talking about forming an association, you know. Make a prototype, and then when you have the prototype and it proves to work, you will surely get the sponsorship, the money to carry it to a larger scale. And that's how all technologies has been. You don't start it with money or big money. It needs certain amount of money, but once the technology is working and is proving, the prototype proving, then there's high possibility that you could easily mechanize it and make generate money out of it. Because if the technology work, everybody will need it. And you have normally when you have a patent for a technology that you produce. So people will now, so actually the technology will start bringing you money, you know. So I think that what we need in Africa now are the brains to develop things. And when we have it, then we can now go around and we have, African economy is not that bad as it used to be, I can say. And Africans are also thinking about innovations and other things. So all the good brains are actually accepted and they can actually generate something. So develop it first, come with the mechanization, and then if it proves to work, you can be sure that you could make something out of it.
That's good. Start with a prototype and then ask for investor to invest in it.
Invest in it.
Yes.
And there are a lot of startup companies in Ghana, everywhere in the world, that has funds that they want to put. In Ghana, there's one guy called Nat that is going around looking for people with good prototypes, good brains, and he invests in them. Once it's proving that it has a future, it can work, it can benefit a lot of people. You get people who have money that will sponsor. So let's use the brain first, develop our brains, and to develop a prototype, normally you start from your kitchen. You start from your bedroom. And when it's done now, then you can now, if you want to carry it on a large scale, that's where you need the investors. I don't know how many people have come up with exceptional ideas that have not been well taken off in Africa.
Yeah, good ideas will always get support. So, but you know, maybe a lot of young people will be watching this video. So, any advice do you have to them if they want to start farming in Africa? Some people can maybe the diaspora or people who have never started it. What type of advice do you have for them, and how can they start?
Yeah. To start first, you need feasibility studies. And then do your feasibility studies and do it well. Connect all the right instances to your feasibility studies. They have a lot of extension officers. They have agriculture economists who can actually draw a plan for you based on what you, or even give you idea of what you can do. And once you have done your feasibility work, agriculture, I always tell people that it's an area that you can actually do the calculation and know how much you invest and how much you can make per acre of land. So it's not a gambling project. It's actually something that you can do the math, and the math could be or will be in your favor if you actually identify the right thing to do. And there is no part of the world that have been successful without agriculture. Last time I told you about potato. We all eat potato, but the largest production of potato is from China. We have all the other countries also have their own. Every country that is successful today, in one way or the other, depends on agriculture. So we as Africans, if we want to develop, we have to be self-sufficient. And to be self-sufficient means we have to produce. And the larger we produce, the more income we'll be able to export, and we'll be able to generate more income and use it to help other people. We create jobs. Actually, agriculture creates jobs. And we're talking about mechanization. It creates jobs. We need people to operate the machines. We need people to also work in factories that will turn the raw material into finished product. Investing in agriculture means developing your network, and in one way or the other, you'll be able to it's a sure business in my mind. So you never make mistake if you do the right feasibility studies actually. And Africa is blessed. Of course, the dryland group struggling, but like I said, we have the technologies. But we have other parts of the world, of Africa, like Ghana, where I'm coming from. If you eat avocado and drop the avocado, the next week when you come, the avocado has germinated.
Yeah.
We used to eat banana that we have not planted. Where the banana came from, we don't know. Cocoyam, coconut, is all over in Africa. So the land itself is fertile in some parts. But when you go there, they are free. There's nobody's doing any project on them,
Yeah.
So I mean,
as you
instead of sitting there expecting everything to come from the government, to come from the third world, we know that the development, the Millennium Development Goal has not been able to eradicate poverty. But we could eradicate poverty if we ourselves help ourselves.
That's very true. Picking up from that last word, we can eradicate poverty if we help ourselves. And we as Africa, we shouldn't depend so much on others. We should look internally and find out solutions to our own problems. Because if we expect a savior from outside, then that's how we continue to be enmeshed in this dependency, and we are not able to achieve very many things for ourselves. So real change starts with understanding what our actual problem is, and then we start resolving it from the bottom, from our small settings. So thank you so much, Ernest, for sharing with us your extensive research and your thoughts, and how we can change the dynamics in the agricultural settings. I don't know if you have any last words for our viewers.
Yeah, it was just to add to what you just said. I was thinking that if we start producing and we start using our brain and coming up with producing on a large scale, we'll move from being dependent in the world to become partners in the world. So we will be able to shape what we have, and then the world will buy from us, and we will also be able to import what they have. So we now move from dependency to being equal partners. And it has to start from somewhere.
Yes. Laye, final words for our viewers.
Yeah, thank you so much for this discussion. And hopefully this will not be the end. This will be the starting, and we will meet and talk about some other thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, and see you next time.